That's why every one of my contracts has a standard no pigs clause.
A no pigs clause?
Here we are. It says, I only work with the frog. That's you, right?
Check.
The bear and the ugly, disgusting little one who catches cannonballs. That's it. No pigs. And that goes for monsters, too.
Oh, the shark has pretty teeth, dear, and he shows them pearly white. Just a jackknife has Mac Heath, dear, and he keeps it out of sight.
Hello, welcome back to Disney Marvels for the week of July 14th, 2019. This is episode 51. Disney Marvels, the show about Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilm, the Muppets, Pixar, Fox, the parks, the TV shows, and much, much more. If it has to do with Disney, it's fair game. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. Whether you're planning your next Disney park vacation, cruise, or you just don't know where to start or what to do, contact our friends at Destinations with Character Travel, the official travel partner of the Disney Marvels podcast. Email them at info@destinationswithcharacter.com or visit their lovely website, www.destinationswithcharacter.com, and be sure to tell them that you heard about them on the Disney Marvels podcast. And now, for the news. Happy 30th anniversary to Splash Mountain and happy 64th anniversary to Disneyland. Yes, July 17th is the 64th anniversary of Walt's first park, Disneyland, and Splash Mountain's 30th anniversary. Still soaking guests since, 30 years ago. You can enjoy a free dining plan when you purchase non-discounted 5-night, 6-day vacation packages that include a room at select Walt Disney World Resort hotels and tickets with a park hopper option. Book through September 29th, 2019 for arrivals most nights between September 1st through September 18th, November 17th through November 27th, and December 8th through December 23rd, all 2019. Disney has announced, and you could get more information from our travel partners at destinationswithcharacter.com. They have the information on their website, and they're more than willing to help you out to navigate which dates would be best for you. Disney has announced that the new gondola transportation system, the Disney Skyliner, will officially open on September 29th, 2019. Disney Skyliner connection between Disney's Hollywood Studios and Epcot to the four resort Disney Art of Animation, Disney Pop Resorts, Disney Caribbean Beach Resort, and New Disney Riviera Resort scheduled to open in December 2019. Although the official opening will be on September 29th of this year. So it'll be in stages. D23 has announced the schedule for Disney Parks presentations at the D23 Expo. The main Disney Park presentation by Chairman Bob Chapek will take place on Sunday, August 25th at 10:30 Pacific Time. The rest of the lineup, Friday, August 23rd at 12:30 p.m., the music and sounds of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at D23 Expo Arena. Saturday, August 24th, 12:30 p.m., Haunted Mansion celebrating 50 years at D23 Expo Arena. 3:30 p.m., Immersive Worlds, bringing stories to life at Disney Parks at Stage 28. 6 p.m., Travels with Marty, a conversation with the Scholars and Imagineers at Walt Disney Imagineering. Walt Disney Archive Stage, I apologize. Sunday, August 25th, 10 a.m., Behind the Art of Disney Costuming, Heroes, Villains, and Spaces Between at Stage 28. 10:30 a.m., the main Disney Park presentation by Chairman Bob Chapek. 2 p.m., Inspiring Women Behind Star Wars Galaxy Edge, Stage 28. 4 p.m., Magic Journey, my fantastical Walt Disney Imagineering career with Kevin Rafferty at Walt Disney Archive Stage. 6 p.m., Mark Davis, in his own words, Imagineering the Disney Theme Park. For the first time ever, National Geographic is coming to the D23 Expo 2019 show floor. They will be inspiring curiosity from what a look at what it takes to free solo climbing to the top of El Capitan to exploring the why behind the wow of gray matter. Over the weekend, National Geographic will immerse you in adventure, ignite your curiosity about the world, and surprising you with stories unlike any we've ever seen before. If you want to see presentations in person, single-day tickets for Friday and Saturday of D23 2019 are available for $89 for one-day adult admission, $69 for children 3 to 9. Gold members of D23, the official Disney fan club, can purchase tickets from $77 for one-day adult admission and $59 for children 3 to 9. Single-day Saturday tickets and 3-day passes are sold out. For more information on tickets and D23 Expo, visit d23expo.com. Spotify launches a new Disney Music Hub. So listen here. Introducing hashtag SpotifyXDisney, a first-of-its-kind music hub filled with just about every song, lyric, and tune from across the entire Disney library. From Star Wars to Frozen, listeners in the United States, Canada, South Africa, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand can simply search Disney and find a special home for all the music behind some of their all-time favorite Disney movies, television shows, and more. Everything from chart-topping Marvel movie soundtracks and full scores from Disney classics are being made available too. This also makes the first time Spotify has created a hub page for a brand, and there's something for Disney fans of all ages. ABC News reports shop the new Disney dog collection and wear matching styles with your pup. If you and your pooch make for perfect pals, you can now dress in coordinating styles together with the all-new Oh My Disney Dog Collection. The collection features the most famous of Disney canines, everything from jerseys to shirts. Baseball caps and mini backpacks are available for both you and your pooch in this latest magical collaboration with Oh My Disney and the Disney classics we all love. The Disney Channel is finding a number of ways to honor the memory of the late actor Cameron Bryce. Bryce, who appeared in the Disney Channel series Jessie and the Descendants franchise, passed away Saturday night, July 6th, of epileptic seizures. On Thursday, Disney Channel announced that they are canceling the July 22nd red carpet premiere of Descendants 3, and instead, the parent company, the Walt Disney Company, will make a donation to one of Bryce's favorite charities, the Thirsty Project, which focuses on providing clean drinking water to those who need it. With the permission of his family, the Disney Channel will also dedicate the telecast of Descendants 3 to Bryce. He was 20 when he passed away, like I said, on July 6th, of what the family said at the time was seizures caused by an ongoing medical condition. Rumors. Actor-singer Harry Styles is currently in talks to play Prince Eric in Rob Marshall's live-action The Little Mermaid. We will be listening and following that closely to see where that goes. We will be back after these brief messages. And now, on with the show. Oh, now we're recording. Yes. Okay.
Second.
All right. So, one episode, one topic I have been alluding for the entire length of this podcast. And I always said this particular topic needs more attention, and tonight it's going to get some of it. Not enough, but still some of it. I have brought on a man of a Muppet, the Muppet of a man. Matt Leonard is back tonight.
Hello.
For us to discuss, hello. Our top 5 Muppet characters not named Kermit.
Yes. Top 5 favorite Muppets not named Kermit.
And if you're wondering why can't they be named Kermit, because it's obvious. The number one option would be Kermit, because he's the epitome of a Muppet character. He's the original Jim's baby. You just can't not have him included.
Right.
In one form of the discussion or not. So just let's erase. Kermit is the top shelf.
Kermit's fantastic.
But there's many other Muppets out there. And some particularly are, don't get enough credit. So we want to discuss some of those tonight. And being, Matt, you are my guest, I will let you go first.
Oh, I get to go first again.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Good.
So we're gonna talk about a couple of favorite characters, and I think one of my favorites who kind of gets overlooked a lot and ignored. I'm a big fan of New Zealand and his amazing boomerang fish.
Ah.
That was very good. Yeah, Lou is a fantastic character. He first appeared in the series 3 episode of the Muppet Show, guest starring Mr. Berenson. What?
Thank you, comic book guy.
Yes, you're welcome. And the story there, if you haven't seen the episode, it is one of the ones that's out on DVD. In the episode, Kermit lets Miss Piggy plan the closing sketch, and Piggy plans a wedding sketch, which is, of course, it's a secret ploy to kind of get Kermit and Piggy married. There's a subplot there about this character, New Zealand, who comes in and he just sort of bugs Kermit and says, "You put me in the show. Let me show you my thing. I've got the boomerang fish, and I throw the fish away, and they come back to me." And then so they get through this whole thing, and they get to the end of the show, and they get down to the priest character asking Kermit, do you take this woman to be your awfully wedded wife? And Kermit goes, I'd like to introduce New Zealand and his amazing boomerang fish. And Lou comes out and starts throwing fish, and it goes insane. But the story about Lou is that I had an opportunity to meet Jerry Jewell, who was the head writer for the Muppet Show many years ago, and I got to ask him about Lou. I said, where did this idea come from? And he said the idea came from Chris Langham, who was a British writer. He was recommended to them by John Cleese. He was a friend of the Pythons. You might recognize him as the centurion who cracks up in Life of Brian. So he wrote for the Muppets, and Chris had a very weird sense of humor. He actually ended up being a guest star in the 5th season of the Muppet Show, when their other guest star bailed on them at the last minute. But Chris had a very weird sense of humor, and Jerry went to him and he said, "Look, I'm writing the show. I need a name for a bad vaudeville act." And Chris Langham, without any kind of second thought, said, "New Zealand and his amazing boomerang fish." And we're like, perfect. That's a very Muppety idea. And then what's great about Lou is one of those characters. There's quite a few of the Muppets that this is true of. Lou was only supposed to be in that one episode, but he was put on the hands of the incomparably talented Jerry Nelson, who is the master of the one-off. I mean, Jerry did so many one-off characters, and so many great characters and so many great voices, and Jerry he based the voice on a comedic actor named Frank Fontaine. And he just totally had it, and they said, "Okay, this character is good. There's more to be done here." And Lou ended up sticking around. It was great because it became Jerry's kind of, if you sort of watch the Muppet Show, it becomes Jerry's chorus member. They do all these sketches where it's a song. They might be doing a song, and Frank Oz will be doing Fozzie, and Dave Goelz will be doing Gonzo, and Richard Hunt will be doing Scooter, and Jim will be doing either Kermit or Rolf. Jerry doesn't have a character who's just sort of a vaudeville sort of. He doesn't have, for all the characters he didn't really have a character that was a performer. So Lou kind of became that and starts showing up in all of these musical numbers as sort of Jerry's chorus member. It's a sort of a weird way of defining that character. And he's just a really fun, silly character. I'd kind of like to see them do more with him, but what do you do with a boomerang fish thrower? So Lou is the first of my characters on my list.
Excellent. Well, I wonder sometimes if Alf took that to heart with their Booyah baseball, being that the whole principle was hitting fish around a baseball field. But that's a good one. That is a good one to start off.
Well, I felt I had to put Lou on there just for the halibut.
It's going to get a little fishy, isn't it? So I will follow that up.
No, poor
I was thinking, Lou was excellent. I was even thinking possibly Crazy Harry, but I went with Nigel, the original host of the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
By one of my favorite, Dave Goelz. He just, I always liked him. I always thought, well, why don't we see more of this character? And whenever I finally saw the pilot episode and see, oh wait, he was actually supposed to host the show. He was running the show instead of Kermit. And then he ends up actually just conducting the orchestra, trying to. And then Muppets Tonight, they did kind of revisit that idea where he was the producer of the show, but still kind of a backgroundish character, if I remember correctly.
No. I'm going to back you up a little bit. Dave never performed that character.
Okay.
It was Jim.
Oh,
and John Lovelady did it, who was another puppeteer in the first season. He did Nigel once or twice. Jim performed Nigel in the original pilot, and he was supposed to be the original host, and they realized very quickly Nigel was an unbelievably dull character.
That's why I like him.
That's why I like him. And somebody very wisely sort of tapped Jim on the shoulder and said, maybe Kermit would be the right character for this. And so Nigel was relegated to the orchestra pit because it was a very expensive show to produce. So it was literally the first season is whatever puppets they had lying around. But because Nigel was lying around, it was like, well, we'll use this character. He'll be the band conductor.
There you go.
And then there was a character in Muppets Tonight. There was another character who was also named Nigel, but it wasn't that puppet. It was a different character. It was a character that Brian Henson played. But you're right. He was the producer on Muppets Tonight. And they named him Nigel to sort of as a sort of nod to the original pilot and to the original character. So yeah, but yeah, Nigel's a great. The fun part about Nigel is they did a bunch of sketches where Nigel, he similar to Kermit had a very flexible head, and so they did a bunch of sketches where Nigel could whistle. Jim could get his hands in there. He could sort of fold them in a certain way that it made it look like Nigel was whistling. So they did a couple sketches and a couple songs. I can't remember the name of it. But there's some sketch with Floyd, Big Noise from Winnetka, I think is the name of the song. And it's Floyd playing a bass and then Nigel whistling. And it's if you can find it, it's pretty cool to watch.
That's awesome. All right, so I got that partially correct. I apologize, people.
Partially correct. We'll give you half credit.
All right, half credit. I got half credit's better than no credit.
No, it's good.
I got 50 useless bonus points on that one.
Character to go with. Well, that's good. That's an obscure character to go. Lou is my only really obscure, but You all right there?
Yeah, I was just doing some quick reading.
Okay.
Just trying to find out that skit for you. But
Oh.
no, why don't you take it away on your who's your next one?
What's mine next? Gosh, I've got so many. And, similar to the last time I was here, I've got a list of 5, but these aren't in any particular order. They're just kind of what I feel like talking about at the time. Because for me, my favorite Muppet tends to be kind of dependent on wherever my headspace is at the time. So let's talk about another. Scooter is on my list of top 5.
Oh, excellent. Good thing I missed him.
Okay. Scooter was the gopher for the Muppet Show, who'd go for coffee and go for whatever else. His uncle owned the theater, as he would constantly remind everybody. And he was based on Richard Hunt, who was Richard Hunt was the puppeteer who played him. And he was sort of based on a young version of Richard, because when Richard first came to the Muppets, he was very eager and excitable and would do anything that Jim asked he was doing. He was just really eager to learn, and he was just very energetic. And I think Jerry Nelson once said he was like a little puppy. You had to kind of like sit him down every once in a while. I'm like, okay, sit, man.
Here's a milk bone.
Easy.
Here you go.
But Richard had this unbelievable energy, and he brought it to all of his characters. He brought it to every character that he did for the Muppets, for Fraggle Rock, for Sesame Street. I mean, Richard, I'm sorry talking about Scooter. I'm going to talk about Richard. Richard did Sweetums. On the Muppet Show, he was Sweetums and Beaker and Janice and Statler. On Fraggle Rock, he was Junior Gorg and a host of other characters. On Sesame Street, he was Gladys the Cow and Forgetful Jones, and Placido Flamingo. He did so many great characters, but Scooter was just this fantastic character. He was very, very energetic, and I love Scooter. He's a character that I kind of identify. I think everybody kind of, I certainly kind of identify with Scooter a little bit, because I think certainly when I was younger, when I was maybe 13 or 14, I went through that phase where he's like, I'll do anything you want me to, is let me be part of whatever we're doing,
So does that explain why your sister said, every so often you would pop your head in, 5 minutes to dinner, 5 minutes to dinner?
Yes, that's exactly why it would happen. Yeah. And what's actually cool is there is one of the early ideas that Jim played with for the Muppet Show was something. It was it was called the Zookus. It was a combination of a zoo and a circus. And he had a couple of ideas. If you find some of the books on Jim Henson's life and on his designs, he had a bunch of characters that he had sort of drawn out. And there is this character, I can't remember what its name was, but you see it, and it's like a really early version of Scooter. It's with the glasses and everything, except his hair is like slicked back. It's really bizarre to see, but you can see that they sort of zoned in on that and evolved it into the Scooter character. Yeah, and something else that I should sort of talk about is that one of the things, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as the night goes on. Show cast was originally kind of 5 guys. It was Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Dave Goelz, Richard Hunt, Jerry Nelson, and each of those 5 guys had what was their more or less central character that they would do, and then of course 3 or 4 or 5 other characters that came up, and then of course anything that the script called for that they would get thrown into doing, cowboys and whatever else. And Scooter was kind of designed as Richard Hunt's central Muppet character.
Scooter's awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pops was his uncle, right?
No, J.P. Gross.
That's okay.
Pops was the doorman. That was another great Jerry Nelson character who came up in the 5th season and kind of replaced that. They used to do the 15 seconds to curtain, Mr. Belafonte. Mm-hmm. They replaced it with the cold opening. They replaced that the Scooter popping his head into the door. They replaced that with Pops, and they did some very funny things with. I think one of my favorites is Pops is sitting there and he's got this giant lever in front of him, and he's cleaning it and doing something, and Paul Simon walks in and introduces himself. You know where this joke is.
I know exactly where this is going.
And he goes, what's that? And Paul Simon goes, oh, it's a lever, but it's stuck. And Paul Simon grabs the lever and pulls it, and it works the trap door. And Pops goes shooting through the floor, and Paul Simon goes, that's cute. I like it. But of course, I know 50 ways to love your lever.
So wrong, but that was a running gag for the entire episode, I think.
They did variations of 50. Dr. Bob Rolf does one about 50 ways to leave your liver at one point. But well, since you mentioned J.P. Gross was his Scooter's uncle, and at first they only kind of had him on the phone, and then in the second season they decided to put him, build the puppet, and have the character on. That was another Jerry Nelson character, and they were gonna have him around more often. They realized almost instantly that the character was too mean to be likable. There was just nothing there, and they kind of, I think J.P. Gross was only on the show maybe 2 or 3 times. The puppet was only used on the show 2 or 3 times. I'll
have to check him out. I mean, even Uncle Dudley's likable.
Yeah. We'll talk about him later too, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, they're it's the great thing about the Muppet Show was it was always kind of an experiment. They were experimenting with things, and if it worked, Lou, like I said, Lou wasn't supposed to be around, and he was. J.P. Gross was supposed to be around, and he wasn't. They got rid of him. So it's always, and Sesame Street and the Muppet Show both kind of worked on that principle. There were characters and they click and they continue. And there are characters who just don't connect.
Showed up and disappeared.
Dead on Sesame Street, they call them dead Muppets.
Bow, bow. Speaking of, so I'm gonna go from your gopher to my monkey, and a Muppet that kind of has disappeared, unfortunately. But I always enjoyed him when he was on, and we actually mentioned in the pre-show, Sal.
Sure.
Just him, how he worked off of Johnny Fiamma in Muppets Tonight. It was just, okay, Sal, yeah, we go do this. He was always excited, and then you could see the wheels in his head just slowly working backwards, and just wait a second, what?
And it should be noted that Sal's full name was Sal Manila.
Why not? Why not?
It's true. The character's full name is Sal Manila. Yeah, that was Brian Henson's character on Muppets. That was one of his characters. He did a couple characters on Muppets, and that was one of them. Bill Beretta did Johnny Fiamma, and he did. I
love that pairing. But I like Sal as much as I like Johnny. I like Sal that much more. That's why he made it to the list.
I think it was, you and I were talking here about certain characters that work. Before the show, you and I were talking about certain, and certainly on Muppets Tonight, characters that worked and characters that didn't. And I think one of the things that Sal and Johnny had, we were talking about Andy and Randy Pig, who were terrible characters. But Johnny and Sal had a real depth to them. They actually did some of the best stuff they did on Muppets Tonight was with Johnny and Sal, because they explored the friendship. I mean, there was the sort of gag of having this monkey bodyguard, but Johnny and Sal really loved each other as characters. There was a real friendship and a kinship, and Johnny and Sal really looked out for each other, and they actually got to cover that in 2 or 3 episodes of Muppets Tonight, and I think that's kind of what made Sal such a great character. You're right; he's one of the better characters to come from Muppets Tonight.
Sadly, like I say, he's not. They really kind of dropped the ball on him. They're not using him as much.
Well, they dropped the ball because Disney's not. It was a Brian Henson character, and Brian doesn't puppeteer with Disney.
No.
No.
No. Disney, no. Sorry, it's Disney on the phone. Tell them I'm not here. But they heard you. No, they didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's almost, and you'd probably actually, I mean, as much as I know Johnny was supposed to be like a kind of a Frank Sinatra type of character, in a lounge singer body, the relationship is more like a Jack Benny and Rochester
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
Sal was Johnny's gentleman monkey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just anytime I hear "Hooked on a Feeling" with the Ooga Chagas in it, I think of Sal.
And Luka Chuck is Johnny.
So Sal, what are you doing? Hey, oh, I'm doing the Ooga Chagas, Johnny. Well, why are you doing that? I just certain things from Muppets Tonight stick in my head, and that's one of them.
I think it's the Tony Bennett episode where they get into a fight, and then they come back together, and at the end, Tony Bennett manages to reunite them, and Johnny gives him a hug, and he goes, "Who's my stinky little monkey?" I am.
Johnny.
And then but then the other great Johnny Fiala episodes, there's one where Johnny, I think literally the title of the Muppets Tonight episode, because they didn't have a central guest star, the title of the episode is Johnny Leaves Home.
Yes.
It was the second season episodes of Muppets Tonight that aired not on ABC but on the Disney Channel. And it's Johnny gets into a fight with his mother and she kicks him out, and now it's Johnny brings Ma and Johnny back together, and you get so much depth out of not only Johnny and Sal, but also out of Mama Fiamma too. The thing about the Muppets is you can have arguments that are affectionate.
Yes.
You know, they argue because they love each other, and that was true for those characters, for Johnny and Sal, and certainly for Mama, that they care about each other, love each other, but they also argue and are at each other, and that's something that I think that's kind of what makes certain Muppet characters work, because that's true. You know, Kermit and Piggy are always at their funniest when they're fighting, when they're arguing. I was talking to friends about this the other day, about like what's the funniest scene in any Muppet movie, and I said the scene in The Great Muppet Caper just before the bicycles, when Kermit and Piggy are fighting in the park, I think is one of the funniest scenes in any of the Muppet movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's they're at each other, they're arguing, but there's an affection between those characters at the same time. You know,
Yes.
there's betrayal that you're dealing with.
It's
In a
not
very silly way.
it's not hatred as in just I can't stand you. It's just it's like it's a misguided passion.
Frank Oz has spoken of this, and he refers to it as the characters are full of affectionate anarchy.
Yeah.
And that was true of Johnny and Sal and Mama, that they had affectionate anarchy with each other, and I think that's why those characters worked. And you're right. I am sorry that they don't do anything with John. We've lost Sal as a character because Disney and Brian Henson don't play very well, and unfortunately, because we've lost Sal as a character, we've lost Johnny too. I don't think we'll ever see Johnny again.
He showed up in one of the recent movies. Was it? I don't think it was the Muppet movie, or it definitely. Was it? No, I think he was in.
I don't think they were
Muppets Most Wanted. I think it was Muppets from Space. I think it was the last time we saw Johnny, and it was just a background.
And then they were in the Wizard of Oz, the Muppets Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up by accident, they ended up in Bohemian Rhapsody. In the Bohemian Rhapsody video.
Yes.
Apparently they unpacked the characters. It was like, oh, we've got Johnny and Sal. Well, we'll put them in there. Like,
why not? We're trying to get this thing going. Let's see, cut a budget.
They packed up like every character they could get their hands on and just sent them out to LA, because the workshop was in New York. They were filming in LA, so they packed everything up and sent it over. When they unpacked it, it was like, oh, I guess we're using Johnny and Sal.
Another Muppet Caper reference. Let's ship the Muppets. Well, we didn't pay for the plane to land, so we're just going to shove them out over the studio. Great. That was episode 12 of season 2.
Oh, Johnny
Fiamma Leaves Home.
Home. That's great.
Johnny Mathis and Daryl and Paige Hanna were on it.
Right.
So, yes, that came after the Best of Muppets Tonight, which I love the gag at the end where you have Statler and Waldorf co-showing a TV show, and I think it was Gonzo walked in. Oh, what are you guys showing? Same skits you are. We're the worst of the Muppet Show. It had its moments. It had its moments.
It was a very hit or miss show.
But all right, so where are you taking us from here on this wonderful journey of Felt?
Gosh, I'll talk about the main character, the one main character I have on my list of top 5. Let's talk about Fozzie Bear.
I knew it. I knew you had him on there. That's why I kept him off of mine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Fozzie. I love Fozzie. Fozzie.
Now, just so people know, bears are the ones that wear hats.
Hats, right?
Yes.
Bears wear hats. Fozzie. We were talking earlier about how each of the Muppeteers had a character that was designed to be their central character. Fozzie was designed to be Frank's central character. And then through a series of circumstances, a certain pig took over instead.
Go figure.
Yeah. But Fozzie,
life imitating art.
Yeah.
So art imitating life.
Fozzie was a central character, and actually the first season they had a lot of trouble writing him because originally the idea was, well, he's just a bad comedian. And what they discovered was that it wasn't enough for him to just be a bad comedian, because he'd go out and he'd be on stage and Statler Waldorf would insult him and pick on him, and that wasn't funny. What made Fozzie funny, they realized over time, was that Fozzie tried, that Fozzie got back up off the mat and kept going, and had that optimism. And we were talking about you layer a character once you have those layers to a character. We were talking about how J.P. Gross didn't work. Fozzie did work or was ultimately able to work because Frank and the writers were able to give him these layers. And he's a great character. The original puppet was built. So he had a mechanism in the ears that allowed the ears to wiggle. But
I missed that so much. And I'm glad in the new Muppet Baby series they did bring that back.
Oh, did they? I haven't seen it, but yeah.
They're just having trouble writing that character to truth, but they do hone in on some of the essence of Fozzie. And one of the things they did bring back, besides the spinning beanie from the original Muppet shows, but is the wiggling ears.
Well, the reason they got rid of the wiggling ears on the show was because the mechanism, it was like a motor in Fozzie's head, and it was, made him light. And when you've got the puppeteer who's holding his hand up over his head for however many minutes or hours,
4 days,
those characters get heavy after a while. So the Frank hated it and had it removed on the. Also, Fozzie had his smile wasn't a smile; it sort of upturned on the side, so it almost looked like he was. No matter what he did, he always looked sad. So they built it into more of they rebuilt the puppet so it was more of an actual smile, and you got more of a grin out of him. But I love Fozzie because he's two things. One is, as I said, he constantly tries.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to be the funniest bear in the world, even if he isn't. So he's constantly trying, and he's constantly trying to do that. And the other thing is that there's nobody who's more loyal to Kermit than Fozzie. He's just the best friend that Kermit could really ask for. Even if he's not always a competent friend, even if he drives Kermit nuts, he always, he's always trying.
That was, what? And bring it back to the new Muppet show, new Muppet Babies show. That was something that they explored in one of the episodes. Fozzie and Kermit, best friends, tied to the hip, and for this show. One of the more recent episodes, Fozzie comes walking in, all excited to talk to Kermit about his harmonica, and no one's really paying attention. I mean, he it's Fozzie. He's kind of oblivious to what's going on, and Rolf, who's not a central character on Muppet Babies, was in this episode, and everyone was, oh, look at the shiny new character. Here's Rolf. He plays the piano really well, and he's smooth as Rolf is. And Kermit and Rolf hit it off, and Fozzie, being Fozzie, isn't so much he's jealous, but it's more because he's not confident enough in himself as being a good friend. And Kermit's like, well, no, you're still my friend. I mean, Rolf could be my friend too. And they have this little competition between, Fozzie tries to imitate Rolf, and everyone's like, well, Fozzie, what's wrong with you? You know, and anytime it's like, oh, I could play the piano too. And obviously, you know how that could go.
Right.
Oh, I could do this too that Rolf does, and it doesn't work out. And, it's kind of a thing to tell, well, you are, teaching kids, you are who you are. Don't try to be someone else. But it's still knitting together the fibers of Fozzie and Kermit's relationship.
Yeah.
In the modern day, what they're actually able to accomplish properly with the Muppets. Lost you on that one, didn't I?
I'm here.
Yeah. So yeah, Fozzie is a fantastic character. I've always adored him. And it especially when it's him and Kermit, like you said, great Muppet Caper, the two of them playing off as twins, and everyone buys it. Oh yeah. Wait, which one am I talking to? It's like, how could you not tell?
Don't look. Well, that's because Fozzie doesn't have his hat on.
This is true. Oh yeah. And then before Photoshop, the picture of their mother?
Their father.
Their father, which was a bear and a frog morphed together. Brilliant writing.
He's such a sweet character. You gotta love Fozzie.
And like you said, he tries. And I think that's one of the things that's enduring about so many of the Muppets, is that they try, and most of the time they don't succeed.
They're underdogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my honorable mentions fits that also well, particularly in something that he's in that's still currently playing for now until things change, possibly, and hopefully not. But let's see, was it? I guess I should go with my next one. Speaking of underdogs, was going to be Dr. Julius Strangeborg, but I had to go with the Viking, and this is where I was going with this in the pre-show. Link Hogthrob. Now you get the Viking reference, don't you? In case if you're listening, you have no idea what this madman is going on about Vikings and a pig. It was the Roger Moore episode of the Muppets, and the opening skit is them singing, a group of pigs singing in the Navy, but as Vikings and pillaging a village. We want you as a new recruit. He's taking, of all things, they take as recruits as plants and vegetables.
Livestock. They take all
livestock. Yes.
They take. It's all sheep and pigs and whatever.
And the people of the village are trying to hold on to the ship, and they're pushing them off, and they're taking the livestock. Actually, one of my dad's favorite skits is in the Navy. But
it's a great. I mean, the production value on that is phenomenal.
So many of those skits, it's phenomenal. So he just. It's not just for that one skit, but for the pigs in space, and then they really could work him into, he was your parody of all the 60s and 70s action heroes. I'm going to blank on any of their names, but almost like Sylvester Stallone and any of those type of guys. He was like that parody character. He was the Muppets token.
They're macho. He and Gonzo sang Macho Man at one point. They did another Village People number where it's Gonzo on one side and Link on the other side, in like a gang war, singing Macho Man.
Well, I'll have to look that one up today.
Terribly, because it's Gonzo and Link. But
can I go back to Fozzie one moment?
Okay.
I use this. People are gonna think I'm so mean. I used this on my daughter the other day. She was trying to sing something or talk. She was talking about something, and I brought up the Fozzie and Rolf skit where Fozzie's trying to sing. Was it 42nd Street? I Got Rhythm.
Oh
And
yeah, he says I got rhythm.
he keeps missing it. No, 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 Fozzie, Fozzie. No, it's like this. It's like this. I got rhythm. No, 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 Fozzie, Fozzie. I like this. Hold on, Fozzie. And Rolf rewrites the song, hands it back to Fozzie. I don't got rhythm. I don't got rhythm.
There's one where Fozzie is singing and Statler and Waldorf is like, that's good. Can you sing solo? I am singing solo. No, solo, we can't hear you.
Where did they get that quote from? That's actually a Disney reference.
Well, the other line that they use, Statler's like, or you could sing tenor 12 miles away.
Right. It's like in the Muppets Vision 3D. Yeah. Oh, this is a very moving moment. Yeah, I wish they'd move it to Pittsburgh. But the reference is to the Tiki Room.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's one of the banters between the macaws where I love to sing solo. Yeah, see, so long we can't hear you. My voice may not be so marvelous, but
we've wandered a bit from talking about Link.
Oh jeez, yes. So anyway, yes, Link heartthrob. He would always, it'd be, this dashing character, and he just completely clueless to what was going on around him. And I mean, he, like you said, he's kind of the stereotype of a muscle man, right. But you would think he would be kind of like the one to woo Kermit, but I mean, woo Kermit. Woo, that wasn't happening in this show. Wooing Miss Piggy, but she just wanted nothing to do with him.
Nothing to do with him because he was a buffoon.
But he just always fit into wherever they put him. He just fit in so well. They just knew how to use that character. He was even like, he worked as the Shatner character for Pigs in Space, and I said, as the captain of the Viking ship, and
the police chief. They used to the bear. Oh, we were talking about Fozzie Bear. He was Bear on patrol.
Yes.
He was the police chief on Bear.
Yes, he was. Yes, that's right. I forgot about those skits. Yes.
Oh yeah. There's the great one. There's the guy who comes in. Fozzie arrests a guy for assaulting an officer. Do you remember this one? Mm-hmm. Fozzie arrests a guy for assaulting an officer, and he goes, well, and he's all right. Well, let me write down what you did. And he goes, so tell me what you did, and the guy's like, well, first I punched him in the, I punched him in the stomach, and then I grabbed him by the ear, and he like demonstrates on Fozzie. And then he does this several times, and then Link's like, wait, let me get a pencil so I can write this down. Okay, start from the top. What did you do?
Hold on. I should write this down somewhere. Wait, who was it? Was it the Garvin episode, or was it the Stallone episode where they ended up tying him into a body pretzel?
Oh, that's Peter Sellers.
Yes.
Oh God, that's such a great sketch. Peter Sellers doing as the masseuse.
Yes.
That's a funny sketch. Yeah, Link was a character they introduced in the second season when they started doing Pigs in Space, and he grew out of, as I have heard it, it was actually something. It was a voice. It was a character that Jim would do whenever he had to do something sort of typically patriarchal, as Brian Henson's talked about. When he would be like carving the Thanksgiving turkey or something, and he would be grabbing the knife and fork. Now we're going to cut it this way.
That's got to be one of the best Thanksgiving dinners, to sit on a Henson Thanksgiving dinner.
But the other half of that, so it was something that, it was sort of this voice that he would do, this sort of pompous, paternal, fatherly figure that you would do whenever he had to be sort of quote unquote fatherly.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that, I don't remember where I heard, there was an interview with Jane Henson where she talked about the character. And she said, all of the Muppets are kind of aspects of their puppeteers. There's a Jim was a little bit of Kermit and a little bit of Rolf and a little bit of Dr. Teeth, a little bit of Ernie, even a little bit of Waldorf. And you didn't have to know Jim particularly well to see those aspects of those. If you knew Jim a little bit, you kind of saw where Rolf came from. You saw where Dr. Teeth came from. You saw where the playful side of Ernie came from. But Link was also a part of Jim, and it was a part of Jim that, it was sort of everything that Jim tried very hard not to be, but ultimately kind of was because he was human. So, Jim did not have an ego, per se, but he did have a taste for nice clothes. He understood the value of a nice article of clothing. So when you've got Link walking up to Mark Hamill and going, nice suit, who's your tailor? That's part of Jim. Yeah. that little piece of Jim. And so that's I think kind of an interesting thing about Link is that he's like I said, he's an aspect of Jim that Jim didn't get to borrow a term from Fraggle Rock. Link was kind of Jim's side bottom. For those of you who are Fraggle Rock fans and know what that means, it's sort of the other side of Jim that he kept on the bottom. So he's sort of in some ways the anti-Jim Henson, and yet very much a part of Jim
Henson. Oh, I'm going to revisit that thought later, and when I get to another character. But yes, just like I said, it's a fun character that just worked the more that they figured him out.
Yeah. And I think it also similar to New Zealand, who we were talking about before. It kind of again, as you sort of watch the seasons of the Muppet Show, Link becomes that sort of chorus member for Jim. When it wasn't really appropriate to have Kermit be the chorus member because he's the head of the show, they'd put Link in there. And I'm thinking of they did another opening, another show. I can't think of what episode that's in, but they did a sketch. They did the song from Kiss Me Kate, another opening, another show, and Link and Lou are both in that. There's a sea chanty that they do at one point that's very funny, and Link is a part of that. He just becomes sort of that chorus member when it's not really appropriate for Kermit or maybe Rolf to be that chorus member.
Didn't they also use him in the Banana Boat song?
Yeah, he's in
the
background there. A fun thing, watch the Banana Boat song. The whole, oh my gosh, if you haven't seen it, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the Muppet Show episode, the Harry Belafonte episode of the Muppet Show,
which is brilliant.
Stop listening to this and go watch that now, because it's
just put us on pause. Go watch that,
because it really is the best thing the Muppets ever did. I mean, certainly on the Muppet Show. That's the episode that you put in the vault. That's the best. But they do the famous Banana Boat song, Harry Belafonte's Banana Boat, the Deo. And in their version, the problem is that they need bananas. And Fozzie is put in charge of finding bananas, and it all goes wrong. And a great detail, if you watch that clip, Jim is doing Link Hogthrob in the background. He's up sort of on the boat that they're singing about. Fozzie docks, and if you look carefully, at one point, Link eats a banana and throws the banana peel over the side of the boat. While Fozzie is running around trying to find bananas, Link has one and he's eating it, and he promptly disposes the banana peel over the side. It's a great touch.
What's that? I don't even know what that is. But it's definitely not a banana.
In an already fantastic sketch, it's just like a little cherry on that for you.
Oh, that's one of my favorite sketches.
Oh, that's great.
Besides the fact that it's Harry Belafonte.
It's forget one of my favorite sketches. It's one of my favorite episodes. I mean, it's just so great.
And also, those for you don't know, Harry and Jim were tight. That was Harry sang at Jim's funeral. I mean, that's how close and what kind of relationship.
They had a lot of respect for each other and what the other one was doing and what the other one was, and they collaborated. When they were making the Muppet Show, it would always start with a call to the guest star, either from Jim or Jerry Jewell, who was the head writer, or from David Laser, who was the executive producer, would contact the guest star and ask what they wanted to do. And Harry Belafonte was one of those guest stars who had a wealth of ideas, and Jim was just open to all of them, and it paid off. It really just paid off in everything that they did in that episode.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So I think we're up to
my next one.
You. Yeah, your next one.
Right, because you did Link.
Yes.
My next one, Floyd Pepper. Let's talk about Floyd Pepper.
I had a feeling you would have one of the Mayhem on there.
Can't we just put the Mayhem on there as one character, or do I have to break them up?
Well, that would be... I can't think of anything, whatever Dr. Teeth would say, but he would have some sort of groovy, psychedelic response to that.
Why you can do that. But really, I should say, I love every member of the band. I mean, the entire Electric Mayhem band.
How could you not? I was going to say Zoot, but it's like, how can I say Zoot without going into Janice and going into Floyd and going into Animal and going into Dr. Teeth?
And Lips. We got to mention.
Oh, yes, Lips.
The trumpet player, because nobody knows Lips the trumpet player, and that's an awesome puppet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just, because the bright yellow afro of hair, I mean, it just steals every scene it's in.
Hey, man, watch it.
Yeah. Lips is a great character. But we're going to talk about Floyd.
I don't have another pair of pants. No, wait, that was Zoot, wasn't it?
It's that's from the Great Muppet Caper. They're doing the checklist, and he says, "Wax lips? I don't, man. I just had them. Maybe put them in your other pants. I don't have no other pants." But we're gonna talk about Floyd. Floyd Pepper.
Yes.
Floyd was another Jerry Nelson character. Sort of grew out of the
Animals handler.
Yeah, he was Animal's handler. He was sort of a beatnik character. Floyd, Jerry Nelson was a big fan of sort of the hippie beatnik scene, and Floyd kind of grew out of that, and then much like Jerry, out of that, and then of course into rock and roll. And Floyd was just a really hip puppet. I mean, just a beautifully built puppet and a really cool character. And
Floyd should have been the fifth Beatle on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Band.
Well, that was the Muppets did a number of Beatles songs and Beatles covers, and one of the most beautiful and touching ones they did was in the Linda Carter episode. One of the songs they do, Wonder Woman. For those of you who don't know who Linda Carter is, she was Wonder Woman in the 70s on television. But they did Floyd Sings While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and it's just beautiful. And then in another one, he did Blackbird. In the Dead of Night. He did that, and it's, I mean, just gorgeous. Jerry was a phenomenal singer. You look at all of the characters he did throughout the Muppets. He was Floyd, Robin, New Zealand, who we talked about, Count Von Count on Sesame Street, Gobo Fraggle. He had a range of characters. He had a range of singing capabilities, and just beautiful stuff he did with Floyd, particularly if he was covering Beatles songs. But a really fun, and then of course he had the wonderful eye mechanism that lets him blink and
blinking sunglasses.
But just a really, really fun character. And so Floyd's one of my favorites, and just really, really funny. I mean, Floyd always got some great one-liners. I think he gets some of the best lines in Muppets Take Manhattan.
He doesn't say much, but when he has to say is just poignant, and he just has this fantastic walk to him. It's not
Okay.
just a normal walk. It's like a slide.
He doesn't walk like the other Muppets do, where they just kind of like bop along. He trucks. He sort of like pulls himself into the scene. He's got this thing he does with his arm.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. Yeah.
I see
He's
now.
the hippest of the hip.
Yes.
He's got a room for life at the home for the chronically groovy.
Yeah. How appropriate. He's right next to who's the guitarist for Rolling Stones?
Keith Moon?
No, Jack Sparrow's character.
Yeah. That wasn't Keith Moon, wasn't it?
Keith Richards.
Keith Richards, I'm sorry.
But yeah, those two get along together. He's fantastic. See, I would thought you were gone with Dr. Teeth. Maybe you are, but I would thought you were going to go with Dr. Teeth.
Got one more.
You got one. I'm just going to move along.
Way to blow the end of the show, Radar. Well, now you've spoiled the surprise.
No, I know nothing. I see nothing.
It's tough to decide who was I going to talk about first, Floyd or Dr. Teeth, because I love them both so much. But yeah, Floyd is one of my favorite characters, and I gotta say, Floyd was one of those characters I loved so much. I was very nervous when Jerry Nelson, who originated the character and played the character, he passed away back in 2012, unfortunately. He retired from the Muppets, or at least from his Muppet Show characters. He retired in 2001 or 2002 because his age had gotten up there. His health, he had some health problems. And I just kept thinking, oh, these are big shoes to fill. This is a character that when they recast it, I'm not going to do well with this. And God bless him, because they brought Matt Vogel in. Matt worked with him on, was a puppeteer on Sesame Street. He and Jerry really got along. And Jerry worked it out, said to Sesame Street, when I go, I want Matt to get my characters. Or when I leave the series officially, I want Matt to get my characters. And they did a thing. Jerry had breathing problems, so he couldn't contort himself into the positions needed to puppeteer. So what they would do was Matt would do the puppetry, would put his hand and do the puppet for the character, and then Jerry would either, depending on the sketch, would either stand off camera and do the lines or go into a recording booth and do the lines for the character. And when Disney took over, there was sort of a weird discussion that took place because Disney was trying to figure out what to do with these characters. And Steve Whitmire and Dave Goelz and Bill Barretta went in and said, look, guys, you have a broken toy here. You've got a ton of characters that nobody is writing for because we don't have a puppeteer to play them. And we don't have a puppeteer to play them because nobody's writing for them. So you need to solve something there. And they started talking about recasting all of these, just tons of characters. Floyd was one of them, all these characters that, Jim had passed and Kermit and Rolf had been recast, but none of Jim, Link was not being used. Chef was being used a little bit. Waldorf was being used, but Link wasn't being used. Rolf wasn't really being used that much. Dr. Teeth wasn't being used that much. Frank had retired, so they had to find somebody to do Frank's characters. Jerry was done, so Floyd, New Zealand, Robin, again, just all these characters that Pops, all these characters that Jerry did, nobody was using. Richard Hunt, who did Scooter, had passed away back in 1992. None of Richard.
There's a nice tribute to him too in Muppet Vision.
In Muppet Vision, both Scooter and Janice do a little bicycle ride across the back.
In case if anyone ever wondered why does that happen,
it's a nod to Richard.
Yeah.
None of Richard's characters had been really recast or used very much. So they started working. Disney started working, and one of the things they did was they called Jerry Nelson and said, "What should we do with them? Who should we be looking at?" And Jerry said, there's a guy I'm working with on Sesame Street, Matt Vogel. You should be talking to him. I want him to have my Muppet Show characters." And I'm so glad they did that because Matt's Floyd is absolutely spot on, and it's one of the few recasts that I can sit and I don't worry. I enjoy Floyd for Floyd, and I'm not sitting there going, ooh, that's didn't quite land that moment. That didn't feel like that character to me. Matt is right there with Floyd, and he's like that with on Sesame Street with Count Von Count too, who's my favorite character on that show. He's just absolutely spot on with both of those characters, and I'm so glad he's got both of those characters and is doing them, because he's doing a fantastic job with both of them.
Yeah, like with the Count, you cannot really distinguish too much between one performance to the next. He just carries on the character so true.
So well.
And Floyd, again, still keeping... he doesn't do the slide walk as much anymore.
And he, if I have one criticism, he overuses the eye blink.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he relies on it a little too much. If he back off that just a little bit, he'd have Floyd perfect.
But yeah, no, that is a fantastic character, and I'm glad that he's still around and more keeping to the original of that character and hasn't evolved into something that wasn't the character.
Yeah.
So I guess I will follow up your band member to my janitor? Maybe? Yeah, janitor, stagehand, lackey.
Are we talking about Bo?
Beauregard.
Yeah. Oh, good. I was hoping we'd talk about Bo.
I love being
He's on your list because I wanted to talk about him. He's on my honorable mention list.
I have taken him off your honorable mention list and put him on my list. And just the lines that he comes up with, again, just always I enjoy. I've used this line with you. I know I've used this line a number of times. Kermit goes to clean up the stage, clean this back. This place is a mess. What should I use to clean it up, Kermit? I don't know. Use some elbow grease. Elbow grease. Come back after the next skit. Oh, how Bo! Wow, this place looks fantastic. Gee, thanks, Kermit. I couldn't find any elbow grease. Oh, well, that's all right. So I used axle grease instead. And then you just see everyone sliding across the stage uncontrollably. I just love that character. Just his again innocence and just stupidity at the same time. It's not, I mean stupidity in a loving way as possible, just because he just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And he played, and they just were able to just plug him into these random places that worked off well. Where he showed up in the veterinary hospital as the patient, or just again clean the stage, or show up in the people's rooms. Just always adored that character. Maybe because he's one of my favorite puppeteers, maybe not, but I just always enjoyed him.
Yeah, Dave Goles is the puppeteer who plays Beauregard, and he did such a great job with him. I wanted to talk about the design of that puppet, because he I think one of the great things about Bo is that he looks so different from some of the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just got this great. He's one of the few Muppets with irises. If you think, look at
this picture, yes, he does.
I think he's the only. I wouldn't swear to it, but I believe he is the only Muppet with irises, whereas the others just kind of have like the little black dots on ping pong balls.
Him and Piggy.
All right, got the pig. Yeah, he's got irises, and then he's got that wonderful mechanism in his eyebrow that he can almost kind of close his eyes and be stupid and think.
You see him concentrating.
You see him thinking, and that's something that's so important in puppetry to see. We have a thing in puppetry called see, think, and react. I'm sure in animation too. You see something, you think about it, and you react to it, and Bo is a character that you always see because he's so stupid, you always see when he's thinking.
And the reaction too, because then you could reverse that and his eyes bug out of his head.
Suddenly pop open. He can suddenly have that realization like, Oh, yeah, the light bulb can go off. Yeah, he's such a great character. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite episodes, I think it's the 5th season, Joan Baez is on the show. And they do a thing where the backstage is overrun with rats. And Kermit tells him to Bo, I want you to take care of these rats. And so Bo starts taking care of the rats and buying them, getting lunch for them, getting coffee for them. And so Kermit gets mad at him and he fires Beauregard. And it's actually Bo goes down to the boiler room and he's or I remember if he says he's gonna fire him or Bo decides he's quitting. And if Kermit won't let him keep the rats, Beauregard's gonna quit. And he goes down to the boiler room and he starts packing his suitcase. And one of the things he packs a picture of Miss Piggy. And Piggy is there. She's raiding the refrigerator. Bo catches her. She's raiding the refrigerator while Bo is there. And she says, hey, it's my picture. And he goes, yeah, I'm taking the things that are important to me. And it's a fantastic moment because it sort of comes out of nowhere that Bo cares about Miss Piggy. And Piggy, in turn, sort of turns around and has Piggy, who kind of always sort of thinks about herself, thinks about Bo and sort of sets him straight and helps him out. And it's like one of the few genuine moments of affection that Piggy shows for one of the other characters other than Kermit. That sort of friendship. And again, we were talking earlier about giving the characters depth and dimension. It gives Bo so much dimension. It gives Piggy so much dimension. It's such a great moment in the series, and yeah, it's just a fantastic moment for both of those characters. So yeah, I agree with you. Bo was sort of like this close to being on my list, and I'm so glad you mentioned him so we could get to talk about him a little bit.
I was between Bo and Beaker, and just something happened. I want to do Beauregard because I connect. I enjoy Beaker so much. I connect with Bo just because he tries, but he just doesn't understand. And just sometimes I know, in for me personally, sometimes people tell me something. Okay, I hear you, so I'm going to try. And why are you doing it that way? Well, that's what you told me because I just sometimes I don't understand it. I don't get it. I think we all have moments like that.
Literal.
Yes,
he's a very literal character. And then we were talking. God, Caper is one of my favorite Muppet movies, and I think that whole scene with him driving the taxi is so funny. The whole thing. I think one of the great lines in the film. How long have you lived in London? All my life. Well, how come you don't have an English accent? Hey, I'm lucky to have a driver's license.
He drives into the front of the building. Yes. Yeah, I enjoy that character so much.
I just don't know how to get there.
It's call another Monty Python. I think with the Gumbies. My brains hurt.
Yeah.
What are you trying to think? He fits in with those characters perfectly.
Yeah.
So yeah, season 3 he debuted. He didn't show up till later on there. Fortunately, within the DVD seasons that they released, but sadly, you only get one season of him in the DVDs that they released.
What they do with him? There's one of the episodes I don't even remember who the guest star is, but there's one where the power gets knocked out in the theater, and there's some fantastic piece of puppetry with Bo. You see him on a ladder trying to fix the fuse box up on the wall, and it's just a fantastic. Obviously, it's a hole in the wall, and Dave's got his arm through it and is contorting himself in all sorts of ways, but it looks so convincing and real. You're sort of sitting there going, "That's not a puppet." No way there's a puppet on that ladder because it looks visually, it looks so great.
That's not the Steve Martin. No.
No. Steve Martin. It's one of the season 4 or season 5 episodes. But I'll look it up later. But it's a great moment. Bo just up on this ladder, and And Bo was also great because he's so stupid. He's great for sort of adding to the mayhem, backstage antics,
causing the chaos,
moving things. I was saying earlier the Kiss Me Kate song, another opening, another show. There's a line, a chance for stagehands to say hello, and they get to that line, chance for stagehands to say, and they cut backstage to Beauregard, and he waves hello, and he lets go of the curtain rope, and that's when all of the chaos starts happening in this sketch. Is that they're singing this song about another opening, another show, and all of the curtains are flying in front of them and opening and closing as Fozzie and Link and Gonzo and Rizzo and New Zealand and Scooter are all trying to sing this song about opening the show, and the song. And you cut back to Beauregard and Beaker backstage pulling on ropes and trying to get it all right. And it ultimately ends with the main curtain closing and the Muppet Show sign, even having the Muppet Show sign fall down in front.
Brilliant.
And you're able to do that because you've got Beauregard there to just sort of add to the chaos.
What would you? Oh, go wave high. I forgot. I have a rope in my hand. Who's this rope for? Just again, fantastic. As much as you'd want to Kermit scream at him, at the same time, you just can't help but feel for him.
Loving him.
All right, so surprise me.
Surprise you?
Surprise me. What's your next one?
I was, there were a lot of characters that I could have picked, and there really are. I mean, there's a ton of great. I mean, there's so many characters. You're gonna get hate mail from people going, well, why didn't you talk about Miss Piggy? Why didn't you talk about Beaker? Why didn't you talk about, Janice or Zoot or Statler Waldorf or Swedish Chef or Sam Eagle or whoever? But we're gonna talk about Dr. Teeth.
Yes.
Yeah. The
Jungle Boogie. I just posted on our Facebook page the other day, just some wake up music for everyone, and it was Jungle Boogie, the short that they did with Dr. Teeth enticing Sam Eagle, Jungle Boogie. Because it's such a Dr. Teeth moment.
You want a great moment? You go back to and I don't even remember what episode it's in. Find Dr. Teeth and Sam Eagle singing Mac the Knife. The Bobby Darin song, Mac the Knife. Dr. Teeth is singing, which is actually a song about like a hitman.
Yep.
And Sam comes in and is, of course, questioning all of these lyrics. Well, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And Dr. Teeth is covering it. Oh, it's slang for, giving him, like, just feeding him lies about what the song is really about. So Sam thinks it's this fantastic, it's about someone losing their puppy, and it's really about, like, mafia hitmen. But Dr. Teeth, it's another great, it's a great Jim Henson character, who's based on the Louisiana jazz musician, jazz and blues musician Dr. John Mac Rebenak, performed, passed away recently too.
Yes.
So yeah, I gotta put him, just for that reason alone. I gotta put him on my list. But similar to Floyd and similar to Bo, just a beautiful design on that character and the way that character worked. And it was, I think what was really fun was he's like similar to Fozzie and Cookie Monster and Beauregard. He's what's called a live hand puppet, which means you've got someone doing the head, with their one hand, and then the hands, either Kermit and Gonzo are on their arms and their hands are on rods, but Dr. Teeth is actually, like a hand in a glove, or a pair of hands in a glove, in gloves. And so what they would do and they kind of dropped it over the years, some of the earlier appearances of Dr. Teeth, Jim would just be doing the head, and then you'd have somebody else doing the keyboard playing, with the hands.
Almost like the Swedish Chef, but with actual Muppet hands and not real hands.
Someone else would be doing the hands and doing the piano playing with their hands in gloves. And then Dr. Teeth had these really, like, almost like slinky arms So he could stretch back, and he'd be like just miles away from the piano, miles away from the keyboard, and be going absolutely wild. And I think that's just sort of a very sort of wild Jim Henson kind of concept. They dropped it a little bit over the years, and they don't do it as much. But that was always kind of a neat thing. And just
his sunglasses moved too at one point, didn't he?
yeah, his son. No, that's always true. He's got
He's a very advanced puppet.
Yeah, he's
Well,
just
being such an earlier puppet too.
Yeah, he's really one of the earliest of the Muppet Show Muppets. He's one of the earliest ones because he preceded. They did. I think the first time those characters appeared, the Electric Mayhem appeared. I think was on like the Sonny and Cher show or something like that. Or I mean, but like the Cher show, a TV special with Cher. I think was the first time the Electric Mayhem appeared. It might have been the TV pilot for the Muppet Show, that the one where Nigel was the host. That might have been the first. I can't remember. They're around the same time. But he's a great looking puppet, really cool looking, and then just a wild personality that Jim got to play. And I think you can see that Jim had a lot of fun doing that, where Kermit and Rolf are kind of
1975, The Muppet Show.
Okay. No, Dr. Teeth was 1970.
Well, that's the Mayhem.
Okay.
But Dr. Teeth himself.
I thought the Mayhem appeared beforehand.
Dr. Teeth himself. Well, I'm not taking it from the most reliable source. Let me go to 75. It says 75.
Okay. I don't know if I believe that, but all right. But yeah, and
This
then
is from the Muppet fandom. Muppet fandom's quoting him at 75. And performed by Jim himself until 1990.
Right. And then Bill Barrett. John Kennedy did it.
John Kennedy was next.
Yeah, I think John did it like once or twice, and then Bill Barretta took over and has done it since. Yeah, and that's another one. I mean, Bill's done such a great job with that character. Just sort of keeping true to it and staying true to that character. So yeah, and then you mentioned the eyes too. I mean, that fantastic eye mechanism that he's got like shades that are his eyebrows. I mean, it's just sort of wild.
And the teeth fitted perfectly to the lips. So he's one of the few Muppets that actually has a set of teeth. That whenever his mouth is closed, you don't see him. Like a normal mouth. He opens up his mouth, you see his teeth, and whenever he closes his mouth, the teeth are gone. They're not like the fangs of the monsters that are always hanging out there. Right. Even Cookie Monster doesn't have teeth. So, that's what you get for eating all those cookies and not brushing your teeth. Dr. Teeth has those teeth, and he's just such a fantastic puppet in just all the nuances and the movements and just the detail that they were able to work into him.
The original costume just had all this fringe that had this great movement to it, so that he was rocking out. You just saw all of that going all over the place. And
that's why Elton John had to come onto the show. He was so jealous of Dr. Teeth. It was the one time that, Elton John came in the show. They all dressed up as Elton John. Dr. Teeth was himself. Yeah, fantastic character. So I guess it's my turn to drop my last official one, which you know it. The strange, disgusting thing that catches cannonballs. The Great Gonzo, which again, the last two. Now this one and the previous one by Dave Goelz. That you were talking about how a character, particularly a main character, is part of a representation or an abstract of the performer. Where Dave always felt to be the outsider in the troupe of the Muppets. Like he never felt like he fit it. He was the guy that he came in to help with paperwork because he was an accountant.
No, he was hired as a puppet builder.
A puppet builder, and
Yeah,
but he did something outside of that, wasn't it?
he was an industrial designer who taught himself to build puppets, and then he got a job. He, through a series of circumstances, ended up meeting Frank Oz and ending up visiting the set of Sesame Street, where he met Bonnie Erickson, and he showed her some of his puppets and pictures of some of his puppets, and his industrial design background was useful in building puppets, and she set up an interview with him and Jim and said, I think you guys should really meet. And so he met with Jim, and Jim hired him originally in the workshop, and then sort of saw this thing, and sort of saw something in Dave that Dave didn't see, and said, I want you to start performing characters with us. So Dave started doing characters, whereas the other puppeteers, Frank came from a performance background, Jim sort of came from a performance background, Jerry Nelson and Richard Hunt Richard was a natural performer.
Yeah.
Jerry came from a performance background, and Dave kind of felt like an outsider. And he said, the first season on the Muppet Show, he was very, very weak. Gonzo is a very, very weak character. He's not a particularly strong character.
He wasn't even supposed to be much of a main character either.
He was supposed to be Dave's central character, but he had fixed eyebrows. The original puppet was used in a TV special called The Great Santa Claus Switch. It was a puppet. It was called the Cigar Box Frackle. It was a puppet that Jim had built, and he was a sad little guy who lived in a cigar box. And then Jim sort of pulled it out and was like, well, now that's Gonzo. He's going to be our stuntman. But he had these very sad eyebrows, and he just, no matter what Dave looked with him, he just looked pathetic. But in between season 1 and season 2, Dave had the idea of, well, I'm gonna rebuild him, and he put an eye mechanism in there so that Gonzo could get excited about things.
Because the eyes started to roll.
Dave started to, learn things from watching Jim and Frank and watching some of the other performers, and he himself was able to develop, and he had, one of the few genuine moments of in the 5th season. They did an episode where Gonzo Gonzo decides to leave the Muppet Show and go to Bombay, India to become a film star. And he decides to leave the Muppet Show, and he sings Frank Sinatra's My Way. And it's a very, very touching moment in the series. It's really one of those things that you'll watch it and you'll end up in tears when you're done, because it's so beautiful and it's so beautifully done. And I can understand you're putting Gonzo on your list and certainly making him number 1, because I think Gonzo is, of all of the Muppet characters, I think he's the character who has evolved the most over the course of the last 45 years.
And I was actually going to say that you can watch that character evolve from
the
first episode, not just the puppet itself, but the development of the character to even, thinking back here, like you said, and this is why I think I like Dave's characters the best, because there is such a humanistic, simplistic element that you just can easily fall in love with them, because they're doing something silly, and they just out of the blue hit you with this heartfelt moment, and he always pulls off these heartfelt moments just so well. Like you said, Gonzo singing My Way. I
think because Gonzo, and this is what people lose in Gonzo. They think, he's the weirdo.
He's just this strange, weird, crazy thing.
But he's the artist. He has an artistic soul. And so you can drive him out. And I think one of the unsung heroes in developing Gonzo's character is Paul Williams, because Paul gave him that wonderful song in the first Muppet movie. I'm going to go back there someday.
I was just going to bring that up.
Fantastic song. It's such a beautiful song. And to have Gonzo sing it, and you now have that rare thing, when you're doing a character for a long period of time, to have a gift like that, to be given a gift like that, where Gonzo can still be the wild, crazy weirdo, and yet still go to this very vulnerable place that's so natural. You know, it's a place. We were talking about the layers of the characters. You know, it's a place. It's a layer to Gonzo. It's a place he can go. I've seen they did a Christmas special about 10 years ago called Letters to Santa Claus, and I've seen so many Muppet fans bash on it because of the song. Gonzo has a song in that. Another beautiful Paul Williams song.
I Wish I Can Be Santa Claus.
It's such a beautiful song. I see Muppet fans who kind of, I don't like sad Gonzo. I don't like when Gonzo is sad. I'm like, no, it's such a beautiful.
It's a beautiful moment. It's not sad. It's such a from the heart.
He's got an artistic soul, and that's really the great thing about Gonzo, that he's not just a crazy weirdo. He's an artist. You know, there's a soul to him. Yeah.
He's, you know, the song from the Muppet movie, and I as I was telling you, I did a talk to some people about that. I had to do a presentation on songs, and I used that song and did a whole 15-20 minute presentation on, you know, it's not, don't just look at it as, okay, it's kind of this the plateauing moment of the movie. No, it is a song talking about how friends who just met have this connection that precedes time, you know, it goes beyond time, pushes the borders of time, and, you know, you have these instant connections and lifelong dreams that sometimes will always just be a dream, but in your head you can always go back to that dream. When I was trapped in Vietnam, I would constantly think of that song about how one day I dream of not just being able to get back to the States. This is not, I'm not a war veteran. It's not nothing to do with the war. This is for personal reasons. Just really realizing what I was saying. No, this is part of my personal family history.
By Charlie.
Yes, Uncle Ho and I were having tea one day. No, I was on travel for personal reasons in Vietnam, and me being able to come back kept on getting delayed. So I was able to go to the roof of my hotel and just kind of look over Hanoi in the quietness and just kind of sing to myself this song about how I'm going to go back there someday. In some ways, I was dreaming about going back to the United States, but also I was talking about coming one day after I got home and several years down the road, come back to Vietnam, revisit Vietnam, you know, coming back to this moment because of what that meant to my family life and what that meant to my just life in general, the importance of me being there at that time. Just such a wonderful song that that you have a character that can pull that off, and then, you know, think in the Muppet movie itself, he starts off, how do you meet Gonzo? You know, you find him not just driving a plumbing truck, but the plumbing truck is on top of a Studebaker. Again, this is how we introduce the character, upside down. And, you know, going back to the Bombay, India, that's where he wants to go and make movies, unlike Big Bird, who wants to go to New York to break into public television. And just so many of the other ones, you can pull off these wonderful moments. In the original Muppet Babies TV series, he had a song, something about the semi weirdo, and it's again a blues song, just kind of exploring the inner feelings of this character of being different. As much as he strives to be different, at other times he doesn't. He wishes that other people could see how he's not different. You know, he's the strange one, but at the same time, he does have feelings. He does, you know, have dreams and ambitions like everyone else. His dreams and ambitions may be, you know, slightly askew to what normal people would consider, but still, he has these ambitions and these loves and these passions. And like you said, he is the artist, and he just wants to perfect his craft. And, you know, like Fozzie, he keeps trying, he keeps getting knocked down, but he gets back up and let's run this again.
He's a character who's comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, one of the things I personally think was one of the worst things that they did with the character was Muppets from Space, and the ending of that.
I agree.
and say, oh yes, he's just this alien from this thing, which again something they did revisit in the new Muppet Babies show, where they find Planet Gonzo and they go visit Planet Gonzo. How I won't go into the premise of the story, but they kind of revisit that somewhat. I personally, I wish they went with the more original ideas that they had for Muppet from Space, where it's kind of a take from Pigs in Space, and the whole cast goes off on this space adventure and whatnot, which I'm sure you know more about that plot than I do.
Yeah, I knew a little bit about it at one point. I'm trying to think. The original. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. But there was an original plot line for Muppets from Space, which was that the Muppets end up encountering a bunch of aliens that decide Kermit is their leader.
The Coosbanes?
Yeah, so they were sort of frog-like looking, characters. The pitch didn't get particularly far, and they ended up going with this Gonzo discovering he's an alien, and it just, it's a storyline that never quite worked for me. I like Gonzo more as the Muppets. I like the Muppets more as abstractions, as abstract ideas, and I like Gonzo as just sort of being a whatever.
An unanswered question, an enigma, and a paradox wrapped up in a fortune cookie. There's some moments of that movie that worked for me, and I liked having Bobo in it. I liked the relationship that they explored more of Rizzo and Gonzo. You don't have any nostrils. How do you smell? Terrible. He's my roommate.
If you want to look at the relationship between Gonzo and Rizzo, Christmas Carol. You get that out of Christmas Carol, and they do it so much better in Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And funny in Christmas Carol. Oh yeah, hey, if we're talking about Gonzo, let's talk about Christmas Carol, because Dave's performance in that, as he's Gonzo as Charles Dickens, and his performance in that, Dave's performance in that as Gonzo as Charles Dickens, is so top notch. It's one of the things that when you find sort of scholars who write about adaptations of Christmas Carol, film adaptations of Christmas Carol, one of the things the Muppets gets recognized for, because they're the only film that does this. Because you've got Gonzo delivering all of the narrative. He delivers all of the narrative. So you get all this wonderful Dickensian narrative that isn't in these lines about, the Marleys were dead to begin with. That's not in any other production, production, because you get Gonzo able to read those lines, and Dave does it so beautiful. And again, it's just a return to the idea of Gonzo not as a madman, but as an artist. I think that's what I love most about Christmas Carol, is that they take Gonzo to that place, and they can really go it. And then you can also toss in all these things about Gonzo, falling on his head and injuring himself, and all the things you expect Gonzo to do. That's all there too, and you can play with that, and it gives a wonderful movement to the whole film as a piece.
We should talk about that film closer to the holidays. That film is just so well done, and it's just, in some ways, so non-Muppet, because it's not a comedy per se, versus it's not like Muppets Most Wanted, or just some of these other ones. It's telling a darker and deeper story. And it's just done, like you said, so well. And even Gonzo is still true to the character, yet is more of a straight man in so many aspects of it.
Right.
He's not pulling off these weird aspects. He's delivered. He said, opens it up. I am Charles Dickens. And he reads his story, and telling the story helps the audience come along, and you literally follow Gonzo along through the movie. You're not necessarily following Ebenezer Scrooge as much as you are following Gonzo and Rizzo through this story.
Yeah, well, the nice thing there is that it's Christmas Carol is written as a ghost story.
Yes.
First of all. And so when the film gets to those scary parts, there are some pretty, intensely scary parts in that film. You can cut back to Gonzo and Rizzo being stupid and, arguing about jelly beans and that kind of stuff, and you can cut some of the tension a little bit without really killing
Losing the story. Yeah.
You can cut the tension without killing the tension, and they do that very beautifully. And that's our favorite Muppet character is not named Kermit.
Yeah, that is our list, and what a list it is. I mean, there's so many I wanted to put on here that.
Can I talk about? There are 3 characters I want to talk about real quick.
Please.
One, I want to talk about, because we mentioned him earlier. We mentioned Matt Vogel, who is the puppeteer that has taken on many of Jerry Nelson's characters, and is now taken over Kermit the Frog.
Okay, so he's okay.
Yeah, Matt's doing Kermit now, and he's also Big Bird on Sesame Street now that Carol's retired.
He's got a lot on his plate.
Just a little bit on his plate. But one of the best characters that Matt's done in the last couple of years, and you and I kind of started to talk about this a little bit before we started recording. Matt now does Uncle Deadly. And I think that when they did the new Muppet series a few years ago on ABC, and it missed way more than it hit, but the one place where it hit and where it was consistently funny was the character of Uncle Deadly.
I loved Uncle Deadly on the new Muppet Show.
Consistently made me laugh. And I think casting him as Miss Piggy's personal assistant, specifically her wardrobe assistant, was just, it gave you so much to do with the character. And he did so many great things. And it was one of the few times where he was able to stay true to what Jerry had established with the character, but also found a brand new place where they could go with that character. And I'm really hoping that they can find that with some of the other Muppets as well, because it was just so funny. I mean, so funny. And I almost deeply regret that Matt is now taking on Kermit, because it means he's probably not going to be doing Uncle Deadly as much, and that's a loss. That's a real loss. You know, when Steve Whitmire took on Kermit, or took over for Kermit, he suddenly wasn't doing Rizzo as much.
No.
There was a period there for about 10 years where he was equally split between Kermit and Rizzo, and then from about 2000 on, Rizzo really took a back seat and sort of, they did that gag in Muppets Most Wanted, the fact that, like, Rizzo isn't even in the Muppets anywhere. He's not even to be seen. And I fear that now that you've got Matt doing Kermit, you're not going to see Uncle Deadly as much, and that's a real crying shame. I'm hoping that's not the case, because it's one of the funnier additions to the Muppets in the last few years.
Yeah, well, going back to Steve, I mean, in the Muppets Tonight, you don't have Kermit in that as much because you have so much Rizzo, because you had Rizzo and Seymour.
Rizzo was sort of he was like an associate producer kind of character.
Oh, it was Pepe. It was Pepe and Seymour. That's what it was.
But yeah, you had Rizzo paired with Gonzo, or Rizzo paired with, you really had Clifford kind of take over the Kermit.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a mistake. I think they really should have kept Kermit in the host position. And I love Clifford too. Clifford is another favorite character of mine. Is another favorite Muppet of mine. I just love the look of that character, and I love the character that Kevin Clash played. But I think it was a mistake to not use Kermit and to kind of cut him almost entirely out of Muppets Tonight. I find when I think of Muppets Tonight, I'm hard-pressed to remember anything done with Kermit. I know he was on the show in a couple episodes, but they just...
Every so often he would pop up or have something to say, but he was really a background character for that show.
And he shouldn't have been. He really should have been the central character. I think you would have had a much more successful series and a much more successful show with Kermit in that role.
So anyone else you want to give an honorable mention to?
There were 2 characters I wanted to mention. There's a person I wanted to talk about, because we've mentioned all the puppeteers, but there's one person who I don't think gets enough credit when people start talking about the Muppets, which is Jerry Jewell. who I mentioned, I think, way back at the beginning of the podcast. Jerry was the head writer for The Muppet Show. He was the head writer on Fraggle Rock. He was one of the original writers for Sesame Street. Wrote a lot of the early Bert and Ernie sketches. He was one of the first people. He was hired by Jim Henson as a puppeteer. He was one of the first puppeteers. He was the first puppeteer that Jim hired specifically. And then a few years later, Jim hired Frank. And Jerry realized he was outnumbered and outgunned, and he better do something. He wasn't particularly good as a puppeteer, but he was a really good writer. And so he filled that niche and let Frank do a lot of the puppetry. But as I said earlier, I had the honor of meeting Jerry Jewell a few years ago and getting to talk to him a little bit. Such a sweet man. He passed away in 2005, about a year after I met him. Such a sweet, sweet man. But one of the things I got to ask him, I said, you wrote, all the characters, Jim was Kermit, and Rolf and Kermit were sort of Jim, aspects of Jim. Scooter was very much who Richard Hunt was. Floyd was very much who Jerry Nelson was. Gonzo was very much who Dave Goles was. All things that we've talked about tonight. And I got to ask Jerry Jewell, I said, you've written for all of these characters. Which character is the most like you, or which one do you identify with the most? And he thought about that for a second. He goes, well, it really comes down to, if you're basically kind of asking who's my favorite character, I've got two. And he says his two favorite, we've talked about our favorites. We're going to talk about Jerry Jewell's favorite Muppet characters. Jerry had two. His first favorite was Rolf the dog. He's both Jim characters. Rolf the dog. Yes. Because Rolf was the kind of guy that you would want to live next door to, and you would feel very comfortable talking to Rolf through the slats of a backyard fence. He said his other favorite character was another Jim character who he loved for a complete opposite reason. While he understood Rolf very well, his other favorite character was the Swedish chef, who he didn't understand at all.
No one understood the Swedish chef.
And in fact, as a Muppet writer, you never wrote lines for Swedish Chef. You just sort of write suggestions for what Swedish Chef might be doing. And then Jim would go in and put whatever, this mock Swedish dialogue to it.
There is one person. There is one person on this earth that understands the Swedish Chef. I'm sorry, you are wrong. There's one person out there. Betty White. Because they both speak mock Swedish.
Okay, fair enough. But you'd write suggestions, and then again, Jim would do the head, and Frank Oz would do the hands for Swedish Chef. So it was, here these two guys. Jim was Ernie, Frank was Bert. Jim was Kermit, Frank was Piggy. Jim was Kermit, Frank was Fozzie. They were so well paired, and when they would do the Swedish Chef, Frank would do whatever with the hands, and Jim would just have to kind of go with it. I mean, you just sort of watch. And one of the things that Jerry Jewell talked about was he had a monitor in his office when they were working on the Muppet Show. He had a monitor in his office so that he could keep an eye just kind of on what was going on down in the studio floor. And he said that anytime he saw them wheel in the Swedish kitchen, the set for the Swedish kitchen, he knew it was break time. And he would leave his office and he would go down to the studio floor just to watch them do the Swedish Chef, because he knew that it was going to be just the best part of the afternoon. It was going to be a ton of fun. And because it would just be Jim and Frank screwing around and goofing off until they got something that was television.
They could stick. Was he the genius? And I do use the word genius, underlined, that in the Muppet pilot, that came up with the idea of having the Swedish Chef with Japanese subtitles?
I don't know who came up with that. I will tell you, they got a Jerry is the genius, however, who had to respond to a legal letter that they got. They actually got a letter from a lawyer who wrote to the Muppets and said, just so you know, your chef does not actually speak Swedish. And it was a lawyer who was planning to sue the Muppets on behalf of the Swedish Chef because he didn't actually speak Swedish.
That's false advertising there.
It was some weird thing where he was going to sue the Muppets because he didn't speak. No, he wasn't going to sue them on behalf. But he was going to sue the Muppets because it was false advertising. The Swedish chef did not actually speak Swedish, and Jerry sat down and wrote this wonder. I was like, I don't know how to respond to this. Like, guy, it's a TV show.
Yeah.
But he wrote down and he said, he sat down and he wrote this fantastic letter back saying, yes, we knew about this already. We've spoken to him about it. He apologized, and he's going to work to improve his Swedish in the future. And we can't fire him because he needs the job to support his wife and children. That was the genius of Jerry Jewell.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. See, like I would, yeah, I have the Swedish Chef under my under some of my honorable mentions.
Oh my God!
Because
So
it's
many-
just it's such an insane and brilliant character. Just like you were just explaining how it is two people working completely opposite of each other, but having to work together. It just plays out so well. Just such a great amount of insanity. The only way to explain most of the Muppet stuff is insanity.
Insanity.
Legalize insanity.
But I'll mention a little piece of trivia. So it was always Jim would do the head, and then Frank would do the hands. In one of the episodes of the show, in the Cloris Leachman episode of the show, the pigs take over the theater. And we're treated to... Kermit is replaced by Kermit the Hog. And there's Fozzie Boar. And it's all the characters, but they're replaced with pigs. And they do the Swedish Chef as a pig. And it's Frank Oz doing the head. And then it's Jim Henson doing the hands of the Swedish Chef pig. just to keep things... And now it's Frank having to deal with whatever Jim decides to throw.
And also as a continuity factor, when he mentioned to the lawyer that that the Swedish Chef has this family that he's looking after, Swedish Chef does have a wedding ring on.
Right, yeah.
A little bit of another more trivia for there that the Swedish Chef does have a wedding ring. He is married. I was also going to mention Rolf too. Because, he's the type of character that likes to go home to his house, have a couple of beers, take himself for a walk, and go to. He just, he was also one of the more original commercialized characters that Jim created to.
We sort of touch on that. Rolf is kind of a very, very important character in Muppet history for two reasons. One, he was the first character. He was the first. They had been doing the characters. Jim had an early set of puppet characters that he had built on his own. Kermit was one of them, and then there were a bunch of other characters: Harry the hipster and Mushmelon, and I can't even think of the names. They were characters from a series called Sam and Friends. And then there were a bunch of abstract things that Jim built. And they would do these on The Tonight Show and whatever else. And they did TV commercials. And somewhere in there, they got hired to appear on the Jimmy Dean Show regularly. And they designed this character, Rolf, the dog. And up until that point, the Muppets have been they were a localized thing. They were local to New York. They were local to Washington, D.C. originally, and then later local to New York. And then they were on the Jimmy Dean Show, and that was a nationally televised show. And suddenly, Jim was in every house in the country because it was a very popular variety show. It was the first really nationally accepted Muppet character. He was, sort of recognized before Kermit. So he's sort of very important in that regard. It was an important time for Jim and Frank and Jerry Jewell because they were working with old guard comedy writers, and that was really where the three of them learned comedy, or certainly where Jim and Jerry and Frank learned comedy. The other important thing about Rolf, and this is another important person to talk about. Rolf was the first puppet built by Don Saleen, who, if Jerry Jewell was the first puppeteer that Jim brought in, and then later Frank, Don Saleen was the first puppet builder that Jim hired, and built Rolf, built the head for Big Bird, built the original Cookie Monster, built the original Bert and Ernie, built a lot of the early Sesame Street characters, and built the first Oscar the Grouch, and really, really kind of helped Jim hone in on that Muppet look that we all know and love. And there's an army of people whose praises do not get sung. Michael Frith, Bonnie Erickson, Raleigh Cruson. I can't even think. A whole army of puppet builders. Jane Gutnick, the famous Muppet Doctor. Tons of puppet builders who don't get recognized, but Don is one we should. I'm glad we're talking about Rolf, because Don is one somebody else important to the Muppets that we should mention before closing out tonight. And Rolf is, like you said, a very important character because of all the reasons I just listed. And man, I'm out of breath for talking about all that stuff.
That's all right. Like I said, this is an episode that I've been thinking about since I started the podcast. I mentioned 90% of the time during the opening that Disney Marvels is a show about Disney, Marvels, Lucas, and I usually try to throw the Muppets in there because it is, I think, a somewhat forgotten but an important aspect, because people our age, some older, grew up watching these guys on TV at night, and this was primetime entertainment, but family entertainment at the same time.
Family entertainment. And
it's something that I think the networks have kind of lost. That you can have something that is funny, edgy, and entertaining, yet still everyone can watch, and not worry about what kind of things that they're picking up.
Yeah.
And the Muppets are just such a lovable group of characters that sadly the current generations just really don't know, unless if you go to the parks, well, particularly Hollywood Studios in Florida. They closed down sadly they closed the copy of it in Disneyland in the California Adventures. They've replaced the Muppet Show with Philhar Magic, which I don't understand, because that show does not work in that kind of spacing. But anytime I go to the studios, I always insist on going to the Muppet Vision 3D, which again, something I've talked to you before. I want to really get in depth of talking about that attraction, just because of how much of the Muppets is in that attraction, not just the show itself, but the show building and the area around it, and just everything about it screams the Muppets.
It's one of the last projects that Jim completed. It's one of the last projects that Jim worked on and completed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think honestly, I don't think he completed it. I think he completed the film, and then Frank Oz and Brian Henson kind of got it across the finish line after Jim passed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or I should rather, fortunately, Frank and Brian got it across the finish line. And I know that was a big discussion for them, that like, what were they going to do with this after Jim had passed? And the idea was to honor Jim's legacy and to put that project in the parks and keep it in the parks. And I'm so glad they did, because what a gift. I mean, it's so funny. It's such a funny production.
It's so well done. It's timeless. Like so many of the things that the Muppets do, they are works of their time, but the comedy in the wackiness is timeless. And it just you could still watch the Muppet movie from 79. And it just still plays out well. It's still enjoyable. And these characters still do endure. That my kids love watching them. They watch more of the newer stuff, which to me, another character I was going to say, I was debating about bringing Walter into the conversation because he's more the newer character that is kind of still kind of hits. He does kind of fit in, and brings back the whistling that you were talking about in Nigel, almost 2 hours ago. But
have we gone longer than the Marvel discussion yet?
not quite.
Close are we?
When I added the news segment, I think we might. Because
I'll stretch this.
Yeah, I have no problem talking more about the Muppets.
Characters we can talk about. We haven't talked about Bunsen and Beaker yet. We haven't talked about Statler and Waldorf.
No one's mentioned Bean Bunny yet. We've talked about the Muppet Vision 3D, but no Bean Bunny.
No Bean.
Suggs.
Marvin Suggs. Sure.
Yeah.
Frank Oz. I'm trying to think who.
The Hugga Wuggas.
The Kuzbanians.
Kuzbanes. There's so
Pops.
many aspects.
We mentioned Pops a little bit at the beginning, but I love Pops.
Pops is a fun character.
Just a great. The design of Pops. Just the design of Pops is just great.
And I want to say that's probably one of the few times that, besides just the standard Kermit, that you see Kermit dressed in an outfit that is shared between the Muppet Show and Sesame Street, where you have the reporter Kermit.
Yeah.
In his trench coat and hat, and which, pops up. I guess Jim probably liked that persona of Kermit because also the Great Muppet Caper uses that getup of Kermit.
Well, like I said, the frog just looks good in a trench coat.
True. he pulls off a trench coat very well.
I wish I looked as good in a trench coat as Kermit does.
You're not green enough.
No.
Your collar's all wrong.
I look terrible in a trench coat. We've wandered a bit.
But just so many great characters that you can't. We could, even though we've got almost 2 hours on it, we can go
for another 2.
We could do a whole nother episode on additional characters.
Top 10. Actually, we haven't. People are going to complain about this. We haven't talked about Miss Piggy either.
How can you did not bring up Miss Piggy? You did not bring up. Well, we brought up Rolf now. Finally, we did bring up Fozzie.
Miss Piggy, who is a great character, just similar to Kermit. Well, she's sort of similar to Kermit. It was one of those
she's the yin and yang of them.
Put her on the list. If we put her on the list, it's sort of not fair to put her. It's not fair to the other characters to put her on the list. It kind of goes without saying what a terrific character Piggy is. We've talked about her. I mentioned when we were talking about Beauregard, I talked about her a little bit. But Piggy's a great character. Rizzo, we haven't talked about too much.
Yeah.
A bunch of great.
Just in briefing, mentioning him about in Muppets Tonight. There's just so many great characters just throughout the Muppets.
Pepe the King Prawn.
Yes. I keep on trying to pull up some mimes, and I keep on getting the one of him on a bear rug. So many fantastic Sweetums.
Sam Eagle.
Yeah, Sam Eagle.
Sweetums is a great character.
Carl gets a little annoying at times, but Carl, I'll get the hate mail on that one.
Mean monster.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Carl.
But they used him more recently. I mean, he was there from the earlier times, but he more became.
Carl was from Muppets Tonight. He was a Muppets Tonight character.
Yeah.
A Bill Beretta character.
Bobo. I always enjoyed Bobo too.
That's another Bill Beretta.
Yeah, they brought him into Muppets from Space, and he started taking traction. And then when things kind of fell apart with him.
Bobo was a character who started. The first thing they did with Bobo was, they did a horrid Christmas special with Leslie Nielsen and Robert Downey Jr. called Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. Do yourself a favor and don't go looking for it. It's painful to sit through.
I have that right next to my Star Wars Christmas episode,
Oh gosh,
and maybe I'll give them both to the Wookiee.
it's so painful to sit through. But one of the things that there's a family of bears in this Christmas special. There's a family of bears at one point, and Bill played one of the bears. And apparently, in between takes, Bill found this character, this sort of idiot bear character that he started doing, which evolved into Bobo. And when they got to Muppets Tonight, it was like, well, we need, they were trying to come up with characters. It would, trying to figure out who would be what characters they were going to use from the Muppet Show, and then trying to develop new characters for the show. It was Brian Henson who was like, oh, let's do the stupid bear that Bill was doing a couple of years ago because that was a really funny character. And that was the birth of Bobo the Bear. So he was on Muppets Tonight, and then they used him. They brought him into Muppets from Space, and then into the Muppets movie with Jason Segel and Muppets Most Wanted, and the most recent Muppet series, and yeah, he's another like. They did a thing on. They didn't do any of them. They were doing a bunch of like little internet skits a few years ago, and they did a thing that was like Bobo doing like an exercise workout, an exercise regime with Beauregard. I'm sure you can find these things on YouTube if you go looking for them, but it was really. I read heard a thing with Dave talking about it a few years later, and he was like, Dave loved it because it really was like, who could be stupider? Or Beauregard.
Well, I know Bobo he does have a company car, even though it is a cement truck. Oh my!
So that's like 10 favorite Muppets, and I think now we're into like 15 favorite Muppets. Not me.
It's 5 is such a loose number. It depends on your definition of what 5 is.
It's 5. We're doing new math. It's okay.
Yeah. So it's 3 plus 2 plus 14 plus 20 minus
1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 is
yes.
One in the hallway, 1 in the garden, 2 in the pool. Never mind.
Yeah, 13 and 8 is 28 or something like that. I forget what was 13 and 12 is 28. But yeah, so many great characters that
that's really the enduring legacy of Jim Henson and the Muppets.
Yeah, that you have this catalog of just wonderful, relatable, and just enjoyable characters that just speak to people.
There's something in there for everybody.
Yeah,
there's something in there for everybody.
To bring it back to Disney, in some ways, it's like the original catalog of Disney characters between Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Minnie, right. Pluto. That you just Clarabelle, Horace. You have these characters that, if you don't like the one, there's someone else that you may be able to connect with. Same thing with the Muppets. You may not be the best Fozzie fan, but you may connect more to Piggy. There is another character there that you will find that you just go, you know what? I know that character.
I know, yeah.
And that's what I want to hear from the people at the table with us, the audience. What is your favorite or favorites Muppet characters? I would love to hear and keep this conversation going, because we could obviously, as you all know, probably keep this conversation going, but I want to hear everyone else's favorite Muppet characters. Let us know. Put it out there on the social networks.
Somebody please say Robin the Frog, because we didn't talk about Robin the Frog either.
And such another just kind of underutilized character.
Camilla the Chicken?
Yeah. There's, in the new Muppet Babies, there's 3 chickens.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna tell a quick story before we go.
Hit it.
They were doing the Muppet puppeteers are known sort of for being a bit of practical jokers. There is a story that they were doing letters to Santa Claus, I think it was, and they had a Muppet Wrangler who was working with them, who was sort of new ones. Muppet Wranglers work behind the scenes. They're the guys who make sure that the puppets are all look good before going on camera, or that, they'll do like quick repairs. So they had a Muppet Wrangler who was working, and they were doing a scene. They were doing some shot that they needed Gonzo and Camilla. And so Dave's sitting there. Dave Goelz is sitting there. He's got Gonzo, and he turns to the Puppet Wrangler and he goes, "Yeah, I've got Gonzo for the shot. We need Camilla." And the Muppet Wrangler goes over. There's a wall of Muppet chickens, and of course, Muppet chickens all look the same. So the Muppet Wrangler comes back with the random Muppet chicken. He goes, "No, that's not Camilla. I need Camilla. Go get Camilla." Sends this poor Muppet Wrangler back, puts that chicken back, comes back with another Muppet chicken. No, that's Bernice. I need Camilla. Get me Camilla. Comes back a third time. I don't even know who that is. Where's his poor Wrangler?
Oh, that guy must have been ready to quit. Oh, I can't find the right chicken. How can I not find the right chicken?
It was a proper hazing.
Oh, I love the story of where Carmilla came from too. What was the one that Dave told that they were doing?
It was it's in the second season.
They were filming in the basement.
Either George Burns or Rich Little, I can't remember, but the sketch is that Gonzo is going to audition Dancing Chickens, and they actually found someone who's like because they filmed in England. They found somebody, an animal trainer, who promised them that his chicken could dance, and of course it was like Jim was there with Rolf playing the piano in the background, and Dave's sitting there with Gonzo, and they go action. And they put the chicken down, and it just sort of does what chickens do. It just kind of walked around and did nothing. And Dave just kind of had to react to it. And and eventually the chicken just sort of found its way to the door and walked off of the little set that they had up. And he turned to the camera and ad-libbed he said somebody, "Don't call us, we'll call you." And then he turned to the camera and ad-libbed the line, "Nice legs, though." And that cracked everybody up, and they decided that Gonzo now, in addition to everything else, Gonzo had he was a chicken enthusiast, and so Camilla was sort of built around that.
Oh, such great stories.
And posited by Dave Goelz, the idea that actually there is no Camilla. That actually all of the chickens are Camilla. Like, it's like his pet name for whatever chicken he happens to be with at the moment. Is Camilla.
When I used to work in the animal kingdom, I actually took that as part of my persona's background. We were told we had to kind of, where we were working, this was at the Gorilla Falls attraction, as there was no back then, that we were all interns, and we all lived in the village, right outside the safari, Kilimanjaro Safari. So my thing was, okay, where's my character live? On the roof of the inn with the chickens. So I brought part of Gonzo into my character that I was portraying, and most people did not get it. I think a couple of people go, okay, this is a Muppet guy. But yeah, that was always the nut job who was talking about the naked mole rats in Living with Chickens was me. So on that bombshell, sir, thank you very much for being on this show.
Yeah, I look forward to coming back.
I look forward to having you back. And we lots of material to cover. And thank you, and talk to you soon.
Good night.
Good night. That wraps up for today's conversation. Again, join the conversation. Let us know, what are your top 5 characters or your favorite Muppet characters? Let us know on the Facebook group, facebook.com/Disney Marvels Podcast. Again, that's facebook.com/Disney Marvels Podcast, or on Twitter @Disney Marvels. Again, the Twitter is @Disney Marvels. Both ways, not only great for conversation, connecting with other Disney people, and also latest news and different things happening, conversations and topics that I post constantly throughout the weeks. Good place to join in. You can also email the show with your responses or any suggestions that you have a show, topic suggestions, whatever. Go to email us at disneymarvels@gmail.com. Again, the email address is disneymarvels@gmail.com, or you can leave a voice message through the Anchor app and website. Well, thank you again for your time. I know how precious little time you have, how difficult things are. Over the summer, you're busy going here, going there. Any time that you're able to spend with me, I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I love my listeners. You're all fantastic people. I mean that, and like I said, it means a lot to me that you take time out of your crazy busy days and spend some with me. The only thing I ask, if you can, if you have an extra 2 minutes, go into iTunes or whatever app you're using, and please leave a rating for the show. It helps other people find out the show. If you can't do that, but if you can tell other people about the show, do that. Tell other people, check out the Disney Marvel podcast. Got some interesting stuff going on. So if you could do that, I appreciate it. Hey, the more people we can get in this family, the better. Like as Disney always figured, bigger families are better. So don't forget to subscribe to the show. This way you always know when a new episode is posted. And while you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber to help the show out. Keep the lights on, as it were. You can do this over at anchor.fm/DisneyMarvel/support. The link is also in the show notes. Hey, and if you're planning your next Disney vacation, or any vacation, make sure you contact Destinations with Character Travel Agency. They are fantastic people, very helpful, very patient. No matter what kind of crazy requests that you have, they will be able to help you out. You can do this over at www.destinationswithcharacter.com or email them info@destinationswithcharacter.com. Again, their website www.destinationswithcharacter.com or email them at info@destinationswithcharacter.com. Be sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Disney Marvel podcast. Hey, whatever you're facing out there, whatever troubles you have, whatever darkness is in your life, or doubts are overshadowing you, just remember, you can get through this. You can overcome the greatest obstacles. It may not seem like it right now, but believe me, the strength is within you. There is a light inside of you that will shine brighter than any of the darkest days, and you can get through this. Be your own hero, and you can accomplish wonders. I'd like to end this show with a quote, not by Walt Disney, but today, appropriate enough, by Jim Henson. It is, "When I was young, my ambition was to be one of the people who made a difference in this world. My hope is to leave this world a little better for having been there." That was Jim Henson. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Daylight come and we want go home.
Daylight come and we want to go home.
Can we do it all together?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Here we go. All right. We said that, yeah, you.
Seven of them, I think.
Daylight come and we want